It is hard to believe that some of the most famous faces in history once slept on cold floors before they ever walked a red carpet. We see the glitz and the glamour, but we often forget the incredible grit, hunger, and sacrifice it took to get there. These legends remind us that greatness isn't about where you are born, but how hard you are willing to fight for your dreams. Here at Celebrity Tribute Hub, we honor their journey from the darkest of struggles to the brightest of lights, proving that the human spirit can truly overcome anything. Before the world knew his name, Cristiano Ronaldo shared a single cramped room with 3 siblings in a humble home where money was scarce and luxuries were non-existent. His father worked as a gardener and his mother as a cook, struggling daily just to afford the absolute essentials for their children. But young Cristiano possessed a burning talent that could not be extinguished, eventually earning a signing bonus that lifted his entire family out of poverty forever. Today, he stands as a 5-time Ballon d'Or winner and the most followed person on earth, proving that dedication can rewrite your destiny. Elvis Presley. The king of rock and roll began his life in a tiny 2-room shotgun shack in Mississippi, where his family was so poor they often relied on welfare to survive. When his father was jailed for forgery, the family lost their home, forcing a young Elvis to grow up in the shadow of shame and financial instability. Yet, he found his voice by merging the soulful sounds of blues and country, sparking a musical revolution that crowned him a cultural icon. Though he left us in 1977, his legacy remains eternal, reminding us that a poor boy from Tupelo can change the world. Long before he was a global legend, Pelé was a boy in Brazil so impoverished that he could not even afford a real soccer ball to play the game he loved. He honed his skills kicking a sock stuffed with newspaper tied with string, and worked as a servant in tea shops to help his parents put food on the table. His undeniable gift shone through the hardship, making him the youngest World Cup winner in history at just 17 years old. He passed in 2022 as a 3-time champion, forever celebrated as the greatest player to ever grace the pitch. Marshall Mathers, known to the world as Eminem, spent his traumatic childhood shuttling between Missouri and Michigan, often living in trailer parks and public housing projects where stability was a myth. He was the perpetual new kid, frequently beaten and bullied by peers, facing a life that seemed destined for obscurity and pain. Instead of breaking, he channeled that raw anger into lyrics, dominating rap battles in Detroit until Dr. Dre discovered his undeniable talent. Now a 15-time Grammy winner and the best-selling artist of the 2000s, he stands as living proof that you can turn your deepest pain into power. Before the stadiums and the screaming fans, Justin Bieber lived in rat-infested low-income housing in Canada, sleeping on a pull-out couch because a real bed was a luxury they couldn't afford. Raised by a struggling single mother who worked multiple jobs, his early life was far from the glamorous world he inhabits today. His life changed forever when his soulful voice was discovered on YouTube, launching him from a local talent to a global pop phenomenon with a massive, devoted fan base. His journey inspires millions, showing that even a kid from a small town can capture the heart of the world. It is almost impossible to imagine that Oprah Winfrey, the first black female billionaire, once wore dresses made of potato sacks and was mocked cruelly by other children for her poverty. Born into hardship in rural Mississippi, she endured a childhood filled with abuse, instability, and extreme lack, facing obstacles that would have broken most spirits. Yet, she refused to let her trauma define her, rising to build a media empire that transformed television and philanthropy globally. Her story is the ultimate testament to resilience, teaching us that our past does not have to dictate the magnificence of our future. Though he is now Hollywood royalty, Leonardo DiCaprio grew up in a rough, run-down neighborhood in East Hollywood that was plagued by crime and drug use. He recalls seeing violence daily as a child, a harsh reality that motivated him to focus entirely on acting as a way to escape that dangerous environment. His breakout role in Titanic launched him to global superstardom, and he has since become an Oscar-winning actor starring in masterpieces like The Revenant and The Wolf of Wall Street. His rise reminds us that vision and focus can provide a path out of even the bleakest surroundings. Tom Cruise faced a childhood defined by poverty and fear, growing up with an abusive father he described as a merchant of chaos, who kept the family in a state of turmoil. He took on odd jobs like mowing lawns and delivering papers just to help his mother and sisters put food on the table after she found the courage to leave. His relentless work ethic eventually propelled him to stardom in Top Gun and Mission Impossible, making him Hollywood's biggest box office star. His journey proves that hustle and determination can turn a struggling survivor into an unstoppable force. The man who brought laughter and martial arts to the world was born into a family so destitute that his parents briefly considered selling him to a British doctor for just 26. Instead, he was sent to a boarding school for the Peking Opera, where he endured 10 years of grueling physical training and poverty that forged his iron will. He eventually combined those skills with his unique comedic timing to become a global icon famous for performing his own dangerous stunts. His life is a beautiful example of how supreme discipline and a smile can conquer the hardest of hardships. Long before he was the Terminator or the Governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger lived in a home in post-war Austria that had no plumbing, no refrigerator, and no phone. He grew up under a harsh disciplinarian father, often watching his mother forage for food in the woods during the family's most difficult financial times. He used bodybuilding as his ticket out, dominating Mr. Olympia before conquering Hollywood and the political arena. His incredible trajectory from a small Austrian village to the American dream inspires us to believe that no vision is too big to achieve. It is hard to reconcile the manic energy of Jim Carrey with the quiet desperation of his youth, where his family lost everything and lived out of a VW bus. At just 15, he dropped out of school to work as a janitor and security guard, trading his education for the survival of his loved ones. He used humor as a shield against the pain, a defense mechanism that would eventually become his golden ticket. Becoming the highest-paid comedian of the 90s with hits like The Mask, he proved that laughter can truly save a life. His journey teaches us that even when you have nothing, your spirit can still offer everything. Before the world hailed her as J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez faced a heartbreaking choice between her family's expectations and her own burning ambition. At 18, she left home after a fight with her mother about college, ending up homeless and sleeping on a sofa in her dance studio. She refused to let the lack of a roof over her head stop her feet from moving, eventually landing her break as a fly girl on In Living Color. Now a triple-threat superstar in music, acting, and business, she stands as a beacon for anyone who has ever had to bet on themselves when no one else would. The youngest of 14 children, Celine Dion grew up in a home overflowing with love but severely lacking in money. The family was so poor that as a baby, she slept in a drawer because there were not enough beds to go around. Yet her voice was a treasure that could not be hidden, leading her manager and future husband to mortgage his own home to fund her first album. She became a global vocal powerhouse, singing "My Heart Will Go On" to millions. Her story reminds us that humble beginnings can birth the most magnificent gifts the world has ever known. LeBron James's path to the NBA was paved with instability, moving apartments 6 times in a single year with his struggling teen mother. The chaos was so severe that in 4th grade he missed over 80 days of school simply because he had no reliable way to get there. His life turned around when a local football coach stepped in to offer him the stability he desperately needed, allowing his natural talent to flourish. Today, as the NBA's all-time leading scorer and a 4-time champion, he stands as a giant, proving that one helping hand can change the course of history. Iron Mike Tyson was forged in the fires of Brownsville, Brooklyn, living in a condemned building with no heat or hot water. Surrounded by danger, he was arrested 38 times by the age of 13, fighting just to survive in a world that seemed to want him to fail. But when he met legendary trainer Cus D'Amato, he channeled that raw aggression into discipline, becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history. His explosive rise from the streets to the ring demonstrates that even the wildest storms can be harnessed into unstoppable power if given the right direction. Born Sean Carter, Jay-Z grew up in the notorious Marcy Projects, a place where violence was a daily language and survival was the only goal. After his father abandoned the family, he turned to dealing drugs, navigating a perilous path that claimed the lives of many around him. But he saw a bigger picture, founding Rockefeller Records and transforming himself into hip-hop's first billionaire and a massive business mogul. His journey from the street corner to the boardroom is a masterclass in evolution, showing that your starting point does not have to be your prison. Before she was the songbird supreme, Mariah Carey lived in shacks on Long Island, her childhood marked by her parents' divorce and financial struggle. She worked as a waitress and coat checker, sleeping on a mattress on the floor of a tiny studio apartment while dreaming of the charts. Her destiny shifted when her demo tape reached music executive Tommy Mottola, unveiling a 5-octave vocal range that would define a generation. With hits like All I Want for Christmas Is You, she proved that pure talent, when paired with unshakable belief, can rise from the humblest floors to the highest heights. J.K. Rowling described herself as poor as it is possible to be in modern Britain, without being homeless, a single mother surviving on state welfare. She wrote the first Harry Potter book in cafes, while her baby daughter slept beside her, pouring her escape into pages that were rejected 12 times by publishers. But she persisted, and today her Wizarding World is the best-selling book series in history, enchanting millions. Her story is a powerful reminder that rock bottom can become the solid foundation on which to build a life of magic and wonder. The story of Rocky is mirrored in the life of the man who wrote it. Sylvester Stallone was so broke he had to sell his beloved dog Butkus for $50 just to buy food. Homeless and sleeping in a bus station, he still refused to sell his script unless he could play the lead role, a gamble that seemed insane to everyone but him. The movie won Best Picture, launched a franchise, and he famously bought his dog back for $15,000. His refusal to compromise on his dream teaches us that self-belief is the most valuable currency you can own. Dolly Parton's entrance into the world was paid for with a sack of oatmeal, as her parents had no money for the doctor who delivered her. Born the fourth of 12 children in a one-room cabin in rural Tennessee, she wore a coat of many colors stitched from rags, yet she felt rich in love. She turned those mountain roots into a global empire, writing thousands of songs and gifting millions of books to children through her imagination library. Her life shines as a testament that a heart full of generosity is the true measure of wealth. Ralph Lauren, the man who defined American luxury, started with nothing but hand-me-down clothes in a cramped apartment in the Bronx. The son of immigrants, he shared a bedroom with 2 brothers, dreaming of a life that looked like the movies he couldn't afford to emulate. He didn't have a fashion degree. He simply started by selling ties out of a drawer, trusting his own vision over industry standards. From those humble ties grew the global polo empire, proving that true style isn't about how much money you are born with, but the elegance of your dreams. The king of horror once lived a life scarier than his novels, residing in a double-wide trailer and working as a janitor just to keep the lights on. He was so poor he couldn't afford antibiotics for his sick children, and in a moment of despair, he threw the manuscript for Carrey into the trash. His wife fished it out, urging him to finish it, a decision that launched a career selling hundreds of millions of books. His story is a testament to the fact that sometimes, the only thing standing between failure and legendary success is having one person who believes in you. Before she made history, Halle Berry faced the cold reality of homelessness on the streets of New York City. When she ran out of money, her mother refused to send help, a moment of tough love that forced Halle to stay in a shelter and learn to survive on her own. She refused to pack her bags and go home, channeling that grit into a career that made her the first African-American woman to win the Academy Award for Best Actress. Her journey reminds us that sometimes you have to lose everything to find the strength you didn't know you had. Mark Wahlberg was the youngest of 9 children in a chaotic 3-bedroom apartment, dropping out of school at 14 to enter a life of crime and drug dealing. By the time he was a teenager, he had a criminal record and seemed destined for a life behind bars, not on the big screen. But he decided to turn his pain into performance, first as Marky Mark, and then as a respected A-list actor and producer of hits like The Departed. His transformation proves that your past mistakes do not have to be your future legacy. You can always rewrite the script. Long before she was the glamorous Carrie Bradshaw, Sarah Jessica Parker grew up in a family of 8 in Ohio that often went without electricity or a telephone. Birthdays weren't celebrated with expensive gifts, but by the relief of finally wiping out the utility bills so the lights would turn back on. She worked her way up as a child actor, never forgetting the value of $1, eventually becoming a global fashion icon and business mogul. Her rise shows that grace and hard work can turn a flicker of hope into a dazzling spotlight. Demi Moore's childhood was a roadmap of instability, moving dozens of times between trailer parks with parents who struggled with severe addiction. She dropped out of high school at 16 to work as a debt collector, carrying the weight of adult responsibilities on her young shoulders. Yet, she broke through the chaos to become the highest-paid actress in Hollywood in the 90s, starring in classics like Ghost and G.I. Jane. Her life illustrates that you can bloom even when planted in the rockiest of soil. The queen of country pop didn't grow up singing in glittering halls. She grew up hunting and chopping wood in the Canadian wilderness just so her family could eat. Tragedy struck when she was 22, killing both her parents in a car crash and leaving her to raise her younger siblings alone while performing at a resort to pay the bills. She poured that resilience into her music, becoming the best-selling female artist in country history. Shania's story is a melody of survival, proving that even after the darkest nights, the sun and the song will rise again. Viola Davis, now an EGOT winner, grew up in abject poverty in Rhode Island, living in rat-infested apartments that were often condemned. She recalls the shame of dumpster diving for food and stealing from corner stores, simply because she was starving and had no other choice. But she clung to her craft, training at Juilliard and eventually becoming the first black actor to achieve the triple crown of acting. Her powerful presence on screen is fueled by the fire of her survival, teaching us that dignity is something you build, not something you are given. Two-time Oscar winner Hilary Swank knows the feeling of being invisible, having lived out of an Oldsmobile with her mother with only 75 to their name. They slept in empty houses listed for sale, utilizing every ounce of resourcefulness just to stay off the streets while she auditioned. That raw, unfiltered experience translated into her Academy Award-winning roles in Boys Don't Cry and $1 Million Baby. Her ascent from the backseat of a car to the podium of the Oscars is a reminder that hunger, real hunger, can be the ultimate fuel for greatness. Howard Schultz grew up in the Canarsie housing projects, watching his father work degrading jobs only to be discarded when he got injured, with no health insurance to save him. That memory of helplessness haunted Schultz, driving him to build a company that would treat people differently. He took a small local coffee chain called Starbucks and turned it into a global empire, prioritizing healthcare for even part-time employees. His legacy isn't just about coffee, it's about healing the wounds of his father by building a business with a heart. These stories remind us that the road to success is rarely a straight line. It is often paved with hunger, heartache, and the refusal to give up. From trailer parks to penthouses, these legends prove that your beginning does not have to be your end. Their struggles shaped them, but their dreams defined them. We hope their journeys have sparked a fire in you today. Which of these incredible stories inspired you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for watching Celebrity Tribute Hub.